The truth has been revealed behind the Milwaukee Brewers trade to add another catcher in Danny Jansen. We're going to be breaking down what this means going forward in the rest of the trade deadline for this Brewers team, as well as going over the package and also a very interesting look at another trade coming featuring a former Yankee. We're going to be breaking it all down here in this video. Before we do jump into it though, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to hit the sub button if you haven't already. We're going and getting all of this news here for your Brewers team this entire trade deadline. We're a couple days away now at this point, one in specific, and we have a lot of news coming afterwards as well. You will not want to miss it. But let's get straight into this video here, jumping straight into the trade. Of course, I mentioned in the last video a very interesting idea from a report saying that, hey, don't be surprised if the Milwaukee Brewers kind of disregard Eugenio Suarez for a little bit and go out and fill the depth on this team. And I figured, hey, this could be something that we see on Thursday on deadline day, but it happened much earlier than expected, and now we have another backup catcher for this Brewers team. The Rays and Brewers announced a trade sending catcher Danny Jansen from Tampa Bay to Milwaukee in exchange for infield prospect Jadher Arenamo. The Rays are including some cash to help pay down the remaining $2.667 million on Jansen's one-year deal, which was an $8 million contract. It's a homecoming for Jansen, who is a native of Appleton, Wisconsin. Now, as we look at this trade, of course, the main feature here is Danny Jansen. Giving up a prospect, not really a big deal, especially for a guy like Danny Jansen, who brings quite a bit to his game. Great in the field, pretty solid at bat when he's on, and we're going to jump into that here in a moment and kind of go over his splits, which caused a lot of interest from many people. But like I said, this trade was something that a lot of people thought was going to go down. I mentioned it here on the video a couple days ago that don't be surprised if they go out and look for a shortstop. They go out and look for a catcher to really help out on the backup side of things here. And kind of going back to that, I want to pull up an article, not the one that we were talking about here a moment ago, but one that really hinted at the Brewers going and looking for a catcher to add to this team. And this is from MLB Trade Rumors saying catching was not a prominent need for the Brewers entering the season. William Contreras has emerged as one of the best backstops in the sport, slashing at 283, 363, and 472 from 22 to 24. His once-panned defense has improved over premium levels in Milwaukee. However, Contreras has been playing through a fracture in his left middle finger and has struggled considerably at the dish this season, slashing just a 242 average. This season, backup catcher Eric Haas hasn't picked up the slack with the bat over the past month, as Contreras and Haas have combined to just hit 228, 294, and 289. Now, when you're looking at this, of course, this is really just a help for William Contreras. This is not a replacement. This is not anything else. This is purely help to hopefully get that finger good before postseason. Help out in the bat just a little bit. Danny Jansen, not necessarily known for his bat, but is a very, very good defensive catcher. And even though we already have that in William Contreras, when you're coming and taking a look at Danny Jansen and his splits, I want to pull it up here and kind of take a look between lefty and righties this season. Has faced, considerably more righties here in this year, and you're looking up the OPS there, an 820 against lefties versus righties, only a 645. And when you're looking at a lefty, of course, Danny Jansen, right-handed hitter, will certainly go up and hit the ball much better there in significantly less at bats as well. But when you're seeing him against the righty, although he does have more hits, although, you're seeing a little bit of a better kind of more plate appearances, a better, result in some of these at-bats. He's much more disciplined against lefties. He's more comfortable against lefties, even though the average is staggeringly low at 197 compared to the righties at 207. So you're seeing him there if he can get hot. Obviously that's good. We've seen that in his career before, and kind of going back into that, looking at his career with Toronto, as that's where he spent most of his time. You get him back to that 260 average, and I mean, that's pretty on the high side of things. That would be exactly what the Brewers need. A 260, even a 228, 223, something like that will really just be a considerable boost to a backup catching for this Brewers team. Now, when it does kind of come down to what they gave up, as I mentioned, not really anything that they're considering too much to be a big waste in a return. I think this is a pretty solid deal when you're going out and getting a guy like Danny Jansen. So going out and looking at Ben Badler here, what he had to say. Arenamo, a 5'8", doesn't have much power. He doesn't have a plus arm or plus speed. Swing isn't exactly textbook, yet Armanio finds a way to make it work both at the plate and the field. He won the batting title in High A Midwest League last year thanks to an outstanding bat control, with managers voting him the best defensive second baseman in the league. He is instinctive, skills over the tools, player who could continue to sneak up on people at higher levels. Now, this is one of these trades where let's hope it doesn't happen, but you see him in a couple of years, you say, wow, this is kind of the trade that you gave up. He's obviously looking very good now at this point, but still, it's high A. He has not yet gotten to that double A, triple A level where we really see an increase in kind of, not just skill of your opponents, but also you're going to see an increase in, build. And as 5'8" and pretty small guy, he's going to need to get a bit stronger in his whole, kind of system as we get towards a higher level. Now, you're going to look at Jose Altuve and say, yeah, you don't necessarily need to, but Jose Altuve is one of these kind of rare instances when you're seeing that here, in the MLB at this point. But, I want to take a look at his stats while we're talking about it. And as you look at his average there, and on the right side, 297, 301, 333, 306, 323. He's been very consistent at the plate. But once again, it's high A, Midwest League. You're going to see that numbers and some prospects like him who are going to be projected to be at this either AAA, MLB level in a couple of years that are really willing and ready to make the jump at this point. But as we kind of jump back into it and kind of looking at the truth behind this, it was evident that the Brewers were looking for a catcher. And getting Danny Jansen for, this price, an option, a hometown guy who would likely, in my opinion, at least sign an extension with the Brewers, I see this as a win regardless behind William Contreras, whether you want to, in some instances run one as a DH, one catch, and there's a lot of options here. It also gives William Contreras that very, very important thing to heal up, get that finger ready to go, and see what happens, because I think that's going to be a very important thing down the line, not just behind the plate, but we want him back slashing at close on 300 average. So let me know what you think about this trade. I think it's pretty a good start for the Brewers trade deadline here, and of course we have some bigger names coming, and once again some videos coming later that we're going to be touching on heading towards this trade deadline. But we do have one kind of a little nice update to talk about here regarding a very interesting trade that is going to be down to the wire, in my opinion, when it comes down to looking at how this team is built. And when we take a look at the rotation here, obviously we have quite a few. And I will pull it up on the big screen here, leave it up for a moment so you can kind of judge, take a look, pause, and who you think could be in this rotation. Of course, Freddy Peralta, been playing great. Quinn Preister, Jose Quintana, Jacob Mizorowski, of course, Brandon Woodruff, Nestor Cortez, and Robert Gasser on the IL. And one name I want to talk about is Nestor Cortez and what's going on with him. And we do have another quote here coming out in another article breaking down what a potential trade would look like from Joel Sherman here. Now, keep an eye on Cortez as a target for one of the pitching-needy Yankees, who have been one of the worst teams in baseball over the past month and a half after a strong start. Let's keep an eye on Nestor Cortez, who made, of course, the fourth and probably the last rehab start on Thursday. Last Thursday, this is, at AAA. He pitched very well on the 4 rehab starts. There were Brewers officials there who are looking at this as as an audition for other teams as for the Brewers. So there seems like there could be another very interesting trade coming. As we look at, once again, going back to the rotation that we were looking at, there are a lot of names here who are going to be fighting for a spot. And, of course, you're not going to see a name like Jacob Mizorowski drop down to AAA. He's here. He's here for the long run now, but a guy like Nestor Cortez, who is on a 1-year deal, expires after this year, send him back to the Yankees. Things like that could be very interesting and give, once again, the Brewers another option to maybe get a prospect here, maybe get another player to kind of add to the depth. It really works out well to get rid of a pitcher, as we know they have so many, whether it is a prospect, whether it is someone who will be at this level now. It seems like the Brewers are really, not just ready, but willing to move another starting pitcher here, one or two, at least to maybe go ahead and get a Eugenio Suarez. If you get Nestor Cortez, the Yankees do have a few, not very many, but a few prospects that could be sent over, or also, maybe an Oswaldo Cabrera, who is now out of this lineup due to Ryan McMahon being traded to that team. So I want to know what you guys think as we come down to it, because, looking at the rotation, looking at what we have options to move, and we know that the Brewers need a little bit of extra help. But one more note before I want to finish this one off. This is not updated as of just yesterday as well, but now the Brewers are continuing to win, continuing to jump here in first place as we beat the Cubs yesterday. Very big win, getting that split even bigger. So that's all I got in this video. Let me know what you think here about, kind of these trades that we're talking about now. We're going to have another video later coming out today. I want to know what you guys think about this, and be sure to stick around for that video. We have a lot of stuff coming as we are, about 24 hours from the deadline. So let me know what you think. That's all I got in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. I'm signing out, though. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.